Hello and welcome to this edition of the show. I'm your host, Brian Mallard. We got Tim over there behind the computer who's making all this happen. And
guys.
We got Jill Christensen in here. How you doing, Jill? Great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Brian, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. And Jill has a lot of stuff to talk about. And she's very on top of things because she's got like outlines and stuff, which is really handy for me.
A cheat sheet.
Because Brian has a bad memory. But no, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born here. I've been here my whole life except for a trip to Switzerland when I was 5.
Oh, fun. You remember much about it?
Well, actually, I do. I remember having to walk up a very long mountain to get back to the hotel.
Wow.
Yes.
Switzerland is cool.
Switzerland is cool. It's also tall. It's very tall.
That's awesome. Never heard of a country.
Switzerland's home with chocolate too, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Swiss miss.
Oh, yes.
So what'd your parents do?
My mom was a housewife most of the time until I was in high school, and then she worked for my grandfather with his business, which was he pioneered the concept of adjustment and recovery, not just repossessing vehicles, but going and talking to people first and saying, "Look, you have some options here." But if you don't let me have your car today, or if you don't pay, you're going to have to see someone else. So he was kind of the kinder, gentler repo man.
Interesting. Some interesting word for Brent Lindley. He wrote a song called Repo Man.
This is true. And a movie. There was a movie.
Now, were your parents artistic at all?
My dad was actually quite technical, and he studied at the Auburn Polytechnic Institute. That's it, exactly right. Exactly. He was studying there, and then I believe that he flunked out because he spent more time playing pool than he did studying. So he was kind of a spoiled kid, and that's why he wound up doing odd jobs and ultimately found something he really loved and was good at, and that was home inspection. So he became a teacher and helped other people get certified in home inspection, and he started that industry here.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Wow. Now you are very artistic. Got a lot of stuff here. Tell me a little bit about your education in art, because we were talking before the show, and you said that like most people can draw, but most people are not encouraged to do so. I used to draw a lot myself when I was much younger, and like today I can draw stick figures. But tell me a little bit about we've got some things on the list here. At age 2, drew a fish, and then in grade school created crayon comic books and produced neighborhood plays. That's cool. Tell me a little bit about that and beyond.
Well, I was very bossy. I was the oldest sister, so of course I had 3 little brothers that I could immediately commandeer, and we had probably 25 kids in my neighborhood. We were the boomers.
Right.
So in my block alone, we had the biggest hide and seek games you can imagine.
That's awesome.
Which were more fun than the plays for the boys, I guess, at least. But most of them were boys. And so, yes, we would produce, I would boss them into doing plays that I had written and make them say their lines, and then everybody would go home, and then they would be mad at me until we played hide and go seek again. So.
All is forgiven. Fun times.
You mentioned the fact that many people don't think that they can draw, that they think that they're either born with it or not.
Right.
But I had a class in college taught by a Canadian, Dr. McKee. Mm-hmm. He was very stern. I took an elective course from him. I was an art major. The elective course was for elementary education majors as well as art majors. Right. It was art in elementary schools. The first day of class, we had 18 elementary education majors and 2 art majors. We were so cocky. We thought, we have got this nailed. We're going to blow them away. We couldn't have been more wrong. He showed us that we were completely off base with that. Wow. He handed out 3 sheets of paper to each student. He said, draw me a man, a dog, and a house, 1 on each sheet of paper. Don't sign it and turn it in. And he said, all right, and now we get to work. Over the next quarter, we were still on the quarter system then, he took us through all sorts of drawing exercises. Many of them were for confidence, for a developing skill at drawing what you see and believing that you can do it, and therefore you're able to do it.
Yeah.
And by the end of the 3-month period, you could not distinguish the work of those students, of the elementary education students, from the art students. And on our final, many of them identified the work they had done on the first day, that they had handed in on those sheets of paper, as the work of 2- and 3-year-olds.
Wow.
They didn't recognize what they had done because they had come so far.
Man, that explains a lot for a lot of things, actually.
He said the only difference is encouragement.
Man.
He said encouragement is the difference that makes an artist versus somebody who doesn't think they're an artist.
And it's interesting because I've experienced a little bit of that myself. Like you pick up a paper and you want to do something, but you put the pen against the paper, you pull it back away, you keep not doing it, and you really, even if you don't feel like you can like write something or do something, once you start, it starts to come out, and it's like it's easy to keep backing away, and that's that encouragement factor you were talking about. That's very interesting. That's a very interesting course, very interesting study, really.
Yeah, it seems to go back to that old Adam that most of the people that appear on our show come, which is just do it. I mean, just don't sit there and wait. Don't sit and wait to be a great artist or a great writer or whatever.
Right.
Just do it, and you have the talent. And it eventually will manifest itself.
Exactly. Keep your nose to the grindstone and just work at it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that breaks up artist block and author's block, writer's block, any block. I mean, it says so in the Bible. It says, here are your 10 talents. Use them, and if you don't use them, they go away.
Yeah.
But the truth is that if we just get started, what is the term? God directs our steps. So yes, He does. But first, we have to take one.
Once chance is taken, providence steps in. I've heard that. Yeah. So you went from, you went on to painting murals and learned basic industrial design and illustrated a school newspaper. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in high school, we had a student teacher who came over and was studying industrial design. And she was my student teacher in art.
Right.
And what she had us do was to design, we had 3 projects. I forget the other 2, but the one that sticks with me is we had to design an album cover. We had to create it, build it. And then we got to do the art on it as well. And so I did one for a Chicago album. And I made it a double fold album, and it had the nice thumb thing where you grab the album and pull it out. I don't know if you remember those, but
I do remember those.
And so I got to illustrate more covers because I did a double album cover. And I'll never forget that because that taught me how to think about to think through a project, a physical project, not just 2 dimensions, but in 3 dimensions.
Right, yeah, which is extremely important. You wrote feature articles and drew cartoons for a school paper, majored in art and studied photography, worked part-time jobs with
lots of silly things, taking surveys house to house and just whatever was available that I could make a little pocket change on. Yes.
Well, we got something in green here, Dr. McKee's class.
That's the one that we've already covered, yes.
Right, gotcha. Well, so tell us a bit about after college.
After college, I went to work. I was working in retail when I was in college, retail sales, like a lot of college students do. It's part-time. It works well with school hours. And then I started working full-time at Penny's, and I got a call from one of the places that I'd applied for a job, Garrett's Home of Photography. Now, they're not still in business, but some of you may remember. And in fact, they were the place that my parents had gone to get their wedding pictures taken.
Interesting.
So they had my parents' wedding pictures there. And so I learned studio photography, and I learned how to do photo oil coloring, and I got to do a little bit more darkroom work, although most of that I got to learn when I was in college. Now, I haven't used any of that since, but I absolutely loved the post-production of the photos with the darkroom work, the dodging and the burning and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. Most of you, those are foreign terms to people who use digital photography and digital photography editing, but it was fun for me.
Yeah.
So, this is the question I'm going to ask with a photographer because I have no idea what this means, but it makes you sound very smart. Do you do it in RAW? Everyone always asks that. I have no idea what that means.
I have never had a camera that would take pictures in RAW because I have never spent enough money on a camera
I know that
to do
feeling
that.
very well. I can relate.
So no, but I did have Photoshop Elements version 2 came with
Wow.
one of my scanners, and I used it until I could no longer use it anymore because it did everything that I, as really an amateur photographer, ever needed.
Right.
It was just a wonderful tool, very powerful. And before that, I mean, it was a whole lot more powerful than Microsoft Photo Editor before that Paint, which I had used previously. So I was happy to have it.
Photoshop is like, I've barely scratched the surface because I'm not really a photographer. I mean, I dabble with it. I've fiddled with some pictures before, but yeah, there's some really handy tools in there. My brother's a photographer, and he knows Garrett and Lane when it was Garrett and Lane. But he's a photographer in this clan.
I remember Garrett and Lane. They were it was part of the family. It was the
Yeah.
daughter. I think her name was Virginia. I forget for sure. But they were the lab. The photo lab's name was
Right.
Garrett Lane.
Gotcha.
No, we'll get to this later on in the show, so you guys stick around because there's a lot of good things coming up. But at what point did you go from digital to, I guess, art, hand drawing, things of that nature?
Oh, we had a flood in our home, a washing machine flood in the middle of one night. My husband was out of town. I went to Walmart and bought a shop vac. It hardly scratched the surface. It got the water off of the hard flooring, but not out of the carpet. So we wound up with a lot of damage to everything. Well, I won't say a lot of damage to everything, but enough that everything was damaged. So basically, we were looking at a whole house renovation. And because Fort Benning was building up at the time, we could hardly find a contractor. And we wound up,
Wow.
it took us a year to do what really should have been able to accomplish very much quicker than that. So we got that done, but what happened was I couldn't be on my computer all the time because I had to move it every night for the contractors that we did
Right.
have. And when that happened, I was running on wires everywhere, and we were having to do a lot of things with our own hands because we couldn't find people to do them for us. And I wound up looking at my cabinets one day and thinking, these are all canvases with no consequences. And actually, this was one of the times that I really believe that God whispered that in my ear, because that was what changed my life and got me back into real art again, hands-on art.
And really, that's kind of the reason that I wanted to ask that question, because, and you, like I said, you'll see a couple of shots a little later on in the show, but Jill's house is very interesting. She has pretty much a lot of different things painted and things that she made, but she is absolute master. I was looking at I believe it was a refrigerator, and she had put the caption below it, it had a spot of rust and we just couldn't get rid of it. So she sat there and renovated the entire thing. She painted it, and it looks great. But it's a very, very interesting process that she goes through.
Yeah.
Well, every room has something different, but I have painted every single wall in the house with some sort of a mural, except for our dining room came out such pretty colors that I didn't want to mess with it. So everything else in the house, and there's a mosaic on the floor in my kitchen that I designed using pictures of the tiles, and then I put it together in PowerPoint.
Wow.
And then the people who did the flooring, Cruise Flooring, who were awesome, they served actually as our general contractor. Had it not been for them, we would not have ever finished our house.
So when you came to art, one, because you wanted to, of course, and that was on the digital side, but would you say it began to be almost a thing of necessity that began to build you up as you...
Well, I would say that before when I was doing digital art, I was at work on the computer all day. Then I would come home and get on the computer. I was on the computer constantly, completely sedentary. I mean, I would work out some, but the rest of my life was on that computer. It wasn't interacting with human beings. I was on the computer.
Right.
And what the flood did for me is it didn't just get me back to art. It got me out into the world again.
Yeah. That's very important, and sometimes it does take catastrophe to make somebody start again.
It did in my case.
Better direction.
It certainly did.
And hey, I tell you what, speaking of art, before we go to the first set of commercials, we've got a very special event coming up Friday. And we want to go into that, and it's called First Friday Art Walk.
Definitely.
Which Jill is very heavily involved in.
Thank you for mentioning it.
No, that's fine. We're going to let Brian delve into that a lot more right after this. Come join us every week for Open Mic Thursdays at Fountain City Coffee with your host, Brian Mallard. Registration begins at 6:30. Show runs from 7 to 10. Uptown Columbus, where the vibe is. Timeless beauty at the Gypsy Cherub, 3760 Woodruff Road, Columbus, Georgia. Class is back in style.
Hello and welcome back to the show with special guest Jill Christensen. And you saw a little bit on the promo before we came into the segment. There's a little ad for the Art Walk, First Friday's Art Walk, I believe, which we're going to get to in a moment. But I'd like to got some pictures to show you that Jill has done, or some of her work. Tell us a little bit about these.
This one was done on black canvas, and it was paint markers. I used paint markers. And the fun thing about this one was that I posted it as my cover image from the first version of it, which was just basically, it looked like chalk on a blackboard. And I took my Facebook friends through the 6 or 7 versions of it until I got to the finished version. And actually, I've added one more little character in the corner that I haven't taken a picture of and posted yet. It was a lot of fun, and I tried to get some of my friends in there. Each one of them was inspired by people I've actually seen at the Art Walk, which I won't say more. But I don't know if you can see the mother with the 2 daughters that are drawing, or she's trying to get her 2 daughters to draw. And there's another little girl who's sitting down and already drawing, and she's working very hard at it and totally focused. And I believe that a lot of folks will bring their children and let them draw, and they'll leave them while they go look at the rest of the vendors in the Art Walk.
Right, yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. We love that we have collaborative art stations set up, including something that I built that has 3 levels that I called a monster because it is so huge and difficult to carry, but it is wonderful for the collaborative art because every family member can then draw at the same time.
Right.
3 sides are available on the tall part and the medium-sized part, and then 2 adults could stand on either side of the very highest level. And then we have other tables set up. We have vendors. The Art Walk started out as a desire to develop an art market for local artists so that they don't have to move to make a living.
Right.
And this has been something that artists have always had to do, and we have lost artists to that for that reason, because we have not gotten to the point yet where we can sustain all of our local artists, and I hope that we do reach that point. We were also incorporating music, and we ran up against the situation where, since we don't ask the vendors to pay money in order to vend, they're allowed to vend for free. Our event is for free. Uptown Columbus allows us to use this beautiful venue for free, which we appreciate very much. And so consequently, we're able to pass that benefit on to the vendors and to the artists. Now, as to why we have vendors and not just artists, we were originally having artists in the stores, and no one could find them. No one knew they were there. We were a new event. No one knew our name yet. Right. They didn't know to look for the artists. We had little signs out, but it really wasn't enough. They sort of got lost in the shuffle. So one of our friends who was working with us was a vendor, and she had set up outside, and she said, I did very well on the median while the artists were inside, and she said, maybe you would consider whether you could come out on the median. So for a while we were out on the median, but apparently there is a city ordinance that prohibits doing exactly what we were allowed to do for a while, and did so very successfully. Wow. But I do understand the reason for it, and that is to preserve the trees that are on the median, and it is actually against the law to set up and operate on the median. Wow. And I'm assuming that those who have done so have got a variance that we did not get, and we are now operating on the sidewalk, but we are still going full steam ahead, and we're looking at other options for expanding as well.
And this is going to get to be the first Friday I go to, so
fun.
I'm kind of stoked on that. So
that's awesome. We'll be happy to see you. You'll have to stop by and do some drawing.
Oh, I don't know about that, but hey, I was looking at this next picture. And this is actually the refrigerator that I was talking about.
Oh, the refrigerator, yes. Yes, there was nothing wrong with my refrigerator except for those little spots of rust. It still keeps food cold. There was no sense, I felt like, to go out and spend many more thousands of dollars when we were already renovating our house. Right. So, and we like our refrigerator. So I thought, well, I studied this faux painting thing a while ago, so why don't I just turn it into a piece of granite and incorporate the colors in our new floor and all that. So that's what you're looking at, is you're looking at a faux painted refrigerator.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Now, of course, this is a photo of the art walk. I believe this is when they're setting up.
This is possibly we've already set up, because what you're looking at there, I believe that's Drew Barwick, who is one of the founders, right there in the yellow shirt. I don't have my glasses on, but I know he is in the forefront. He's wearing a hat. He's a tall, skinny fellow. So he is one of the two original founders, and now Drew had an online Facebook group called Open Columbus, Georgia, and one of his friends, Christian Lamar, approached him, and they posted in the group that they were looking for visionaries. Well, I consider myself to be a visionary, so I thought this sounds like fun, and it was the first thing that I'd really tried to do art-wise. I actually didn't know it was art until after I showed up, but several people came to the first meeting, and a few of us stuck, and I think I've been to about 150 since then.
Wow.
So, but since then we've grown, and the people who participate in it have ebbed and flowed, but there are a few people who have been there since the very beginning, and that is Drew and Rajim Douglas, who is our current chairperson, and me. And I'm not exactly sure what my role is. I've been the vice chairman in the past, the co-chairman for a while, and now I'm just kind of there and won't go away. But what I really enjoy most about the Art Walk is the opportunity to work with people and talk with them about what their potential is, to try to figure out how they fit in, help them discover things about themselves that are great that they don't even know yet. This is the thing that I love most about the Art Walk, is that opportunity.
That's awesome. That's a great thing.
Oh, this is a sign that Drew challenged. He actually dared me. He said, okay, you're an artist. You went to art school. You probably know how to stretch a canvas. I said, sure I do. He said, how about one about 6 feet square? Wow. He said, I have a woodworking shop in my garage, by the way, which we haven't mentioned yet, but I design and build furniture. And he said, why not build a 6 foot square canvas sign, and then people can stop and have their picture taken in front of it. So that's what I did. And it's now been to so many art walks that I need to rebuild it, refurbish it, or replace it. So it's time to do it again. This is Keely May. She is a glassblower who, unfortunately, for Columbus, has had to move to make a living. And so she is our best example of why we are there. And she helped me to do the sign, and the story behind the design is that the fellow in the design is sort of based on the Keep On Trucking guy from the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And he's also the Keely May and Rajim had done a logo made up of an art walker holding a piece of art and walking on flowers, which came from a Chinese proverb about if you want to feel beautiful, imagine that you are walking on flowers with each step. So all of those came together and created our art walker. And so the art walker wound up on the sign, not the flowers. Instead, we put the buildings and to represent Uptown Columbus. And I'm real happy with the outcome. It's my favorite color of green, so I got to choose that.
Very cool.
I miss Keely May, though. This is a vision that I had after seeing a book in a car wash. And I did not take the time to confirm the title of the book, so I will just tell you that on the back cover it had a man crouching down in a blue light, and it showed him gradually standing and walking into the light, the sunlight. And it was a Christian book, and I started thinking, why is it that so many movies leave children worse off, less prepared to deal with life, less success, less potential for success? Why can't that be the other way around? And I hear this voice now. I need to tell you that my higher power, God in my life, is kind of a snarky God. And so the answer that I got was, why do you think that you are the person thinking this? So, okay, fine. So I went home and immediately started obsessing about the details and went back in prayer and said, okay, you know me, you know that I'm going to obsess about all this. You also know that I'm not going to be any good at actually building this. What is my role here? And the role that I was told was motivation and vision. So, okay, I can do that. I can do motivation and vision. All right, but operations, no operations. So, no infrastructure. Which is kind of funny because with the art walk, that is kind of what I do. I do the infrastructure, which is very contradictory to my nature. I keep trying to find someone else who will do that for me, and I think I may have in the form of one of our new members of our team, Tiffany Stacy. She's awesome at that, and I really appreciate everything she's doing, and I'm so grateful to her for coming along and taking that on for me.
Well, I'll tell you what. What would you like to? Oh yeah, actually, I'm behind the times here a little bit. Check out the shelf.
Oh, this is an example of my woodworking. This is probably my nicest bookcase. Some of them have been debacle, some of them have been good. This one is one that it was the squarest bookcase that I had built. And when I put it in the room was not square. So I had to build another bookcase around the bookcase, and that is why it has an extra end on it, because my husband said, while you're at it, wouldn't this be cool if? So I added the small shelves on the end and put dowels in through there to hold his little statuary in there. So now he has military statuary in the end of this bookcase.
That's a cool bookcase.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And I noticed as we are going to go to our next picture that you have a habit of doing the bookcases that fit maybe behind the wall or just to save space. You have them in various places.
That's true. And one thing that I'm known for that people will have started asking me, okay, where is it? Is I like to build, when I build freestanding furniture, I like to build hidden compartments. So there'll be little locking spaces or hidden places for people to slide papers or to stash their money and stuff like that. So I really enjoy the little surprises.
Oh yeah, hidden compartments are always awesome.
And what's really neat is looking through the pictures, you can actually see the various talents that Jill has.
Yeah.
From building to designing to artwork in the digital realm to freehand to painting. And you can really see, what God has said, okay, these are talents that I'm going to put into you, and as they've grown, you can just see how they're beginning to manifest themselves.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's what I was extremely impressed when I was first reading this outline of all the different things that you were involved in, and that your talents is like Tim just said, from drawing to the painting to the woodworking. That's quite a payload of talents.
Thank you.
And going to the next thing, actually a mural on the wall.
Yeah.
Actually, a mural on the wall. That is probably still on the wall. Planet Pops has closed now. This was the hallway to their restroom. And he said he wanted something, whereas we did planets on the benches as well. So nice. This was after that. He called me back and he said, I'll actually pay you to do this, which the benches were gratis. And so I hired another artist, Ashley Colbert, who is now involved with Passaquan and doing beautiful work. And she helped me, and we got this done. And we worked 16 hours the first weekend, and then I came back the next weekend and did the green areas above and below and did some touch-up. But her color work was an inspiration to me, and I'm still using some of the color lessons that I learned from her about blending and mixing colors. But we had a ball doing it. On one wall, it's bouncing slinky planets, and on the other wall, it is popsicle planets. I'm not sure if you can tell from the photograph, but that's what they are.
And after you come up with, when you start something of this magnitude, what do you start on and then begin to build around? We've had various artists and they go, okay, I start with the shading first, or I start with this first, and I'm just kind of curious, what process do you go through?
I do a rough drawing of the whole thing first. I do the circles and the ellipses around the circles for our versions of the Saturn, which actually was all of the ellipses that turned into the slinky, because that is really a slinky planet.
Well, I certainly hope whoever uses that space next keeps it, because that's quite a piece of work.
I hope that they do too. I have no expectation that they will. The benches have already been recycled because they were at Planet Pops as well. Now they're bright red and have been cut into pieces, and they're at my friends who own Cruz Flooring, who served as our general contractors, have opened El Flamboyant restaurant downtown, and my benches are in there. They're bright red, and they're in the waiting area, and they look quite good, bright red also. And so that my friend would not feel that I was going to be hurt by their painting them, I painted the first one.
Wow.
And speaking of the benches, I believe we got a picture of before they were transformed into what they currently are.
Right. Now, if you notice the names on the front of the bench, these are the signatures of the children and a few adults, but mostly children who helped me paint the bench. They each contributed something special to the painting.
I like that. That's really cool. That's what will make it a personal project.
Right.
And so it's pretty neat. And also, it's as the children grow up, they can go by and go, look, I was, 5, 6, 7 years old. I did this.
Yeah.
That was our thought, but now they'll have to use the photo.
Photos, you always have photos, but it's still nice to have.
It would be nice to, yes, it would be. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go and we're going to do our second set of commercials here. And
sounds good to me.
Come back, and Jill's got a couple of things laying on her heart that she wants to share.
Thank you.
In the meantime...
Hello, I'm Catherine Childry with Let's Vocalize. For over 35 years, I've coached vocalists and groups privately. I also perform vocal workshops training choirs. I'd love the opportunity to show you how direction, discipline, vocal health care, and regular practice can drastically improve you, your group, or your choir's performance. Call me at 706-536-6123 or visit us online at www.letsvocalize.com. I'd love to help you offer your best gift.
Yes, Toddy, the chocolate malt in a can.
It's so good hot. It's so good cold.
It hits the spot with young and old.
Yes, Toddy pleases everybody. Delicious chocolate malted toddy, made with rich, real milk, not powdered milk.
So come and get it, everybody. It's time to drink your chocolate toddy.
Delicious.
But how do we make goodness attractive? By doing whatever we can to bring courage to those whose lives move near our own. By treating our neighbor at least as well as we treat ourselves. And allowing that to inform everything that we produce. We all have only one life to live on earth. We have the choice of encouraging others to demean this life or to cherish it in creative, imaginative ways.
Tell us what that means to you.
Well, I'm an ENFP. This is one of the four-letter designations of the Myers-Briggs test. An ENFP is an encourager, a member of the temperament group Idealists. There are four groups: realists, guardians, idealists, and artisans. Oddly, I don't test as an artisan, and I actually have tested very few people who do fall into that group. But that may be because we're usually drawn to people who are like us. I think that's possibly the reason. Now, I happen to have married a member of the realist group. Now, here's how I see the difference in a guardian and a realist and an idealist. I still haven't figured artisans out, and I think that's kind of the point of being an artisan.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That people can't figure you out. Guardians are people who, they respect authority and they respect things as they are. They see no reason to change them, and they are the people who, artists, I will say, now I won't say artists because that's confusing. It sounds like artisans. I will say that idealists and realists don't revere the box quite as much. The guardians are more about the box. Yeah. Realists are like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it's broken, why wouldn't we fix it? Idealists are like, it could always be better.
Yeah.
So we're kind of the bane of the existence of the guardians who live in the box. We're completely outside of the box. We're like, yellow box has its uses, but. And so in the idealist group, there are two that I sort of waver between, and that is teacher and counselor.
Right.
Actually, teacher, counselor, encourager, I forget the name of the other one. There's four of them, and I kind of fluctuate. But basically, I fall into the encourager group. And this means that when I meet people, I know that I may have only seconds to influence their lives in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And this was inspired by a book I saw once in a counselor's office. And the title of the book was How You Can Help People the Most You Possibly Can if you don't know if you'll ever see them again.
Right.
So this is kind of what I try to do, and is to see what I can see about a person, mm-hmm. and that they may not see that's good about themselves.
Right.
And I've studied spiritual gifts. I wanted to say something about that. Spiritual gifts, I studied for a year on this, and I really was driven to do this. And at the end of the year, I only had about 2 sentences to show for my year, but they were what I had gone for. They were my answers. And one of them came from a reading in My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. And the saying was, that I took from it was, it's an act of spiritual impertinence to think that God has some big job for me when all He wants me to do is to come unto Him. And then I went, wait a second. Okay, now it all makes sense. It's more blessed to give than receive, so He gives us something we can give. And then, because of the glow, the light that we feel inside of ourselves, that is the bringing us close to God. Mm. That is the whole point of spiritual gifts. And if we're not enjoying and loving the spiritual gifts that we've been given, then we're not going to be living to our full potential. We're not going to be. If I'm not out there encouraging people, I'm not living. I'm not doing what I'm here for.
Right.
Okay. The other thing that I found was that our spiritual gifts are the things are not the things in a shiny package across a large divide, like a lake or something. They're in the beat up paper bag by our feet. They're the things that we completely take for granted, and someone with low self-esteem is likely to assume that if they have something, that everyone has it, because obviously they're not very special.
Right.
So what I try to do when I talk to people is to recognize what they're good at, to pick up what their strengths are, and how they think and how their mind works, and encourage them in some of the directions that could possibly take them where they'll be successful.
Right. Right.
So, for example, I may meet someone who's extremely analytical and very kind. Now, usually when someone's extremely analytical, reading them, their analytical ability usually overrides their kindness. But sometimes I'll see both very strongly. Well, that person I will give a little bit different encouragement to than someone whose gift of compassion is maybe hidden a little more behind their gift of organization.
Right.
But for example, I walked by one young man in a store one day, and now I've also studied education, so I know the learning styles and I know the thinking styles. The learning styles, the primary three, are learning by hearing, by doing, by seeing. There are others that involve preferring to learn in a group, or preferring to learn with background noise or not. But those are the three basic ones that are just involving the person.
Right.
And then the two primary thinking styles are global and linear. We either think 1, 2, 3, and we're able to learn 1, 2, 3, or we have to learn the whole checkerboard before we can remember what 2 was. So,
I can completely understand that. That's interesting.
And the funny thing is that people's body language will sometimes suggest which of these they are, what their Myers-Briggs is, what their learning style is, what their thinking style is. And I walked by this kid one time at Walmart, and he was sort of unfocused. He was stalking. He was sort of unfocused. He was hesitating between his movements, and I just got this really powerful drive to encourage him about being global. And I said, I think that you're a global learner, and I think that when you go into a class that you feel like you're slow, and other people may treat you that way. But the truth is that the only reason that you feel that way is because you have to learn the whole database. But once you've got the whole database, somebody can say R27, and you're right there.
Right.
You don't have to go back to 1 and go 1, 2, 3, 4 to 27 or A to R. You're right there. You've got the whole database. And I said, so don't get discouraged. I just want to tell you that you should not get discouraged. Have faith that you're gonna get to where you need to be, no matter what you try to do.
Right.
So, but that's the kind of thing that I really love doing with people. And I have people come up to me sometimes that I have, and I've done this so often that honestly I forget who they are. And it's like working in retail when you're the only one sitting at the cash register and there are people coming through all day long.
Right.
It's kind of like that because it's gotten to be that there's so many. And well, that's just it. That's it in a nutshell. Ready for a new topic.
Well, I will say that, the spiritual gifts, I'd like to say on the subject of that you have spiritual gifts and you are meant to use them. They're given to you, and if you don't use them, it is a terrible waste.
Well, it's like the 10 talents. It's like anything else. And I will say to anyone who is out there who is hesitating to make a decision about something, just do something. Just do something, because God will direct your steps.
And most people have an idea of something that they lean toward. Like, for me it's music and video stuff. There's some people's woodworking. So, whatever people have a tendency to be inclined toward a certain thing. And like we said, just do it. You gotta jump in there and start doing something, and it'll work itself out.
And you know what? I'm gonna. I don't know. Maybe on the other end of the spectrum, I know myself that I began. I actually did radio years ago, and wanted to go into recording. I actually, as a young kid, had this dream of having my own recording studio, and so forth and so on. But as time went on, things began to happen, and God kind of changed my direction, which was my first big thing. My hearing went.
Right.
So therefore, a lot of the things that I wanted to do, I couldn't do. So I started to look at more of the visual thing,
Right.
which got me to cameras, which I'm trying to play around with now. And, throughout this past year, since we actually have started this show, I've actually met more people that have kind of, it's not that they're pointing me in different directions as much as they are showing me more avenues.
Right.
And, it's a really fascinating journey.
One of the best things about meeting a lot of people is that, people show you things that you've never even thought of, never even considered. Like you said, the avenues. Like, it's amazing. There's as many different ways of doing things as there are people out there, which is really cool.
Did you know that art is not just the representation of things visually? Art is also something that develops us cognitively, socially, many spectrums. It's the reason that the Art Walk has taken the direction that it has with collaborative art and is now reaching into the schools and working with schools collaboratively when we can in all the ways that we can, is because of that, is because art it offers so many more benefits than people have any idea about.
Oh, yeah.
When we watch those kids come down and draw, and we engage adults too. We'll go out and invite adults and families, whole families over to come and draw with us. And the reason that we do that is because, and I love it, because we get to watch them, and when you see some of the things that they create together, it is amazing what goes on in people's minds creatively.
Yeah.
Especially the first time they're usually a little hesitant, but if they come back or if they stay a while, or if there are enough people drawing, it just depends on the atmosphere, what they feel like at the time, what's around them. And there's almost always good music going on down there too, and that tends to make people more comfortable as well. I mean, you're a musician, so you know the effect that music has on the savage beast. I mean,
does.
it's
Music
like,
is awesome.
and the same happens for creativity in other areas. And we see people dancing and drawing, and singing and drawing, or just so focused on their drawing, and it's just a wonderful thing to see that.
Music can be conducive to helping you really focus in and zone in on what you're doing.
It totally can, and thank you so much for running the video for us and for highlighting our art walk, which is this Friday night from 4:30 until 10 in Uptown.
4:30 in the afternoon, 4:30
Right.
p.m. to 10 p.m.
Right.
Okay. So this is not a daytime event, which is what I had assumed when I saw the picture earlier.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't get to go uptown as much as I would like due to my work schedule.
Right.
But I got a chance actually to go down yesterday. I had to go get this bunch of hair on my face cut down a little bit. And it was fascinating. Downtown, there was a parade going on.
Right.
They had things going on with different venues and market days, and Uptown has become an absolutely fascinating place to go.
It has.
It's
It
got
really
a
has.
wonderful energy.
It
I
is.
love it.
It is great.
It's
It
come a
actually
long
is.
way since the businessmen got together and said, we have to do something. Let's call ourselves Uptown Columbus and get busy.
And guys, if you haven't had the chance, or maybe if you are watching this broadcast and you live elsewhere, you can go on the internet these days and just look at anything. But go to Columbus, Georgia, and look at the way Uptown has just manifested itself.
Yeah.
That's what it used to be. It just used to be old stores closed down, and there was really nothing there. There may have been a couple of, maybe a furniture store and, a couple of clothing stores. Now they just, it's absolutely amazing to see the transformation.
And even the farther down part, which has been dead for a long time, is really starting to come alive now. There's some neat little, down where Chaos on the Rocks used to be, the Bradley Theater. There's some nice little areas that have opened up down there, which hopefully will make that end spring up. There's a lot of renovation going
are
on.
actually some massive plans for the development of that area. And the city is going to work more closely with Phoenix City to develop more of a bi-city theme and to use the walking bridge for various events.
Cool.
And it's going to transform over the next few years.
As long as they keep the theaters, that's what we need to. We need to preserve those theaters badly.
There you go. As a matter of fact, I know Brian was down there last night performing.
Yeah, Sally Brown Band. We played for the breast cancer awareness benefit.
Awesome.
That was fun, and hope to do it again soon.
And Columbus is and we're gonna wrap this up. But Columbus is an absolutely fascinating town because since I have moved here. And yet a lot of it has to do with we have a college here in town, and so you get that fresh blood every couple of years or whatever. But there is so much talent here, so much undiscovered talent.
There is.
And we need to capture and keep as much of it as we can.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And one of the ways we do that, one of the best things we do is, the things that go on in Uptown presents a place where artists not only can display their talents, but they can network with one another.
Yeah.
Yes.
And which is one of the most important things. And as a matter of fact, I just wanted to mention real quickly, Jill actually has a Facebook page she's currently working on, which is the Columbus Arts Network.
Thank you for mentioning that. However, because I'm still working full-time, I haven't had time to develop that, but I have developed the concept. And I sort of feel like put out some of the energy that is now, that whether it has anything to do with the Columbus Arts Network or not, Columbus is developing in amazing ways in the film industry area. Georgia is offering huge incentives for filmmakers to come and make movies here. And Columbus has decided we're going to be the next Burbank. So I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. I'm involved with one small production company myself, which is just a wonderful opportunity for me. I do their storyboards, and I'm kind of mom, and that's Red Roof Productions.
So if you happen to see the next Marvel production and there's some really nice artwork on there, look and see if you see the name Jill Christensen in the credits.
Thank you.
Well, we're gonna close this up, Jill. But we're gonna run a video before we go to the credits. But I want to thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Brian, for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Check this out as we exit out. Tim's looking for the thing.
Yes, I'm looking for the. I keep giving the Brian the go ahead and do it, but I've got it up. Anyway, guys, have a great day and a great weekend, and we will see you from the show next weekend.
I'm blonde.